Two people, the same job, the same savings, both standing right at 55 with the exact same choice in front of them. One of them walks away and retires right now, today. The other one keeps working for 10 more years and retires at 65 instead. And by the very end, one of them ends up with far, far more money. But the other one ends up with something that money can never, ever buy back. And which of the two of them actually made the smarter choice is nowhere near as obvious as it first looks. So let me introduce you to Tom and Karen. They are both 55 years old. They have the exact same nest egg saved up, and they have the very same Social Security sitting on track for them. The only difference is the decision they make on this one single day. Tom retires immediately, right now, at 55. Karen decides to keep right on working, all the way to 65. So now, let us watch very carefully what that one single decade does to each of their lives. Start with the cold, hard financial reality. Because for Tom, retiring a full 10 years early is honestly a brutal triple blow. All landing at once. First, he gives up 10 more years of adding fresh money to his pile. Second, and this is the part people miss, those exact 10 years were the single most powerful decade of compounding he had left, when his snowball was at its absolute biggest. And instead of letting it grow, he is now spending it down. And third, his money now has to somehow stretch across a retirement that is a full 10 years longer than Karen's. 3 heavy blows, all at once, all from one single choice. Put a rough number on just that compounding blow alone. Money that might have doubled one more time between 55 and 65, growing completely untouched, is money Tom will simply never get to see. For a lot of people, that single missing decade of growth is worth more than everything they managed to save across their entire 20s and 30s combined. That is the quiet, invisible price tag hanging on the early exit. And then there is one very specific trap waiting in the gap between 55 and 65. Because Medicare, the government health coverage, does not begin until you turn 65. So Tom has to go out and buy his own health insurance for an entire decade, right through some of the most medically expensive years of his life. And that cost alone can quietly wreck an early retirement budget. Karen, meanwhile, gets to keep her employer's health coverage that whole time, completely sidestepping the trap. And there is one more quiet dent. Because Social Security is calculated from your working years, stopping a full decade early can actually shrink the size of Tom's monthly benefit, leaving him with a slightly smaller check for the entire rest of his life. Quick, honest note right in the middle here. None of this is financial advice. It is just the real math of the trade-off. Your savings and your situation are entirely your own. Now, back to it, because here is where Tom quietly gets his revenge. Because now you have to flip the whole thing over. Karen's 10 extra years of rock-solid financial safety came at a very real cost of their own. Tom got 10 full years of complete freedom right in the prime of his life, while he is still healthy, still energetic, and still young enough to genuinely use them. And here is the brutal truth nobody likes to say out loud. The trips you can take at 55 are simply not the same trips you can take at 75. Those particular 10 years, from 55 to 65, are arguably the single most valuable decade a human being ever gets. And Tom spent every one of them out living his life, instead of sitting at a desk. Because here is something that never once shows up in any spreadsheet. Your health is not actually guaranteed to politely wait around for you. Plenty of people grind all the way to 65, promising themselves the whole time that the reward is finally coming, only to arrive worn down, or genuinely unwell, or caring for a sick spouse. So, retiring at 55 is partly a bet that your very best years are happening right now, and that particular bet is not always the wrong one. So, you see, this was never really a math problem at the heart of it. It was always a trade. Retiring at 65 buys you a powerful kind of financial safety and certainty, but retiring at 55 buys you time, the one and only thing in this entire world that you can never, ever earn back at any price. So the genuinely right answer comes down entirely to two questions. How much do you personally value each one of those things? And, just as importantly, have you actually saved enough that choosing 55 will not quietly blow up on you later? And notice that money and time quietly move in exactly opposite directions as you age. The longer you keep working, the more money you pile up, but the fewer truly good years you have left in which to ever spend it. At some point, more money simply stops buying you a better life, and only more time can. The whole real game is finding that exact crossover point for yourself, before it quietly slips past you forever. Because that second question is the one that truly decides it. Retiring at 55 is only genuinely safe if your real numbers clearly support it. That usually means a big enough pile, often around 25 times your annual spending or more, a concrete and funded plan for that brutal healthcare gap, and a withdrawal rate gentle enough to survive that much longer timeline. If all of those pieces are truly in place, then early retirement is not reckless at all. It is simply your well-earned reward. But if even one of them is missing, then retiring at 55 can quietly become a slow-motion financial crisis. And here is the part that almost everyone forgets, the option hiding right in plain sight. You do not actually have to choose between those two harsh extremes at all, because the single most underrated path of all is the bridge. You coast, you drop to part-time, or you semi-retire somewhere in between 55 and 65. And by doing that, you unlock most of that precious freedom, you take the brutal financial pressure off, and you let your portfolio keep right on healing in the background, all without taking that savage all-or-nothing hit. For an enormous number of people, the genuinely best answer was never Tom, and it was never Karen. It was living somewhere right in between the two of them. And the real beauty of that bridge is that it quietly attacks all three of Tom's blows at the very same time. Even a little bit of part-time income means you are still adding something to the pile, you are touching the portfolio far, far less, and you often get to keep some health coverage on top of it. You unlock most of the freedom while quietly defusing most of the danger. It is honestly the closest thing there is to having it both ways. So the real takeaway is this: retiring early is not automatically brave, and retiring late is not automatically wise. It is a deeply personal trade of money for time, and the only wrong move is making it by accident without ever once running your own real numbers. Tell me in the comments, just type the word early if you would happily trade some money for an extra decade of freedom, or late if the security matters more to you. And if you want the next breakdown, the one on exactly how big your pile needs to be to retire early safely, it is waiting for you right now. I read every single one.